M8 described the culture of cycling in France at the end of the 19th century. Cycling became popular in France during and after the Industrial Revolution. Bicycles were upgraded, and there was more development in the leisure class, and that meant more workers had time for recreational activities like cycling. And the earliest competitions known were often connected to villages throughout France, and then they would travel 100 to 150 miles. Velodrome racing was held in arenas where falls and just very frequent dramatic events. How did the Tour of France begin? Who founded it and why? L'Auto founded it, and they wanted to raise their declining paper sales, and then they also wanted to beat Le Velo both in sales and create pretty much the most prestigious bicycling tournament in the world. Who is Maurice Guerin? What was his place in cycling history? He was a cyclist who won the first Tour de France in 1903, and then he won by 2 hours 49 minutes. And then in 1904, someone illegally handed him food, and he later confessed to that and pretty much to cheating, even though he won that tour as well. What were tours like in the 1920s? The race was becoming longer. There was a much diverser pool of winners. Other people began traveling into the country just to purely compete. And beginning in the 20s, and then the roads were pretty bad after World War One. And then what was the only other nation that was as passionate about cycling? Italy was very big into cycling as well, and then some people would like to argue America for that, but I believe the answer that you were looking for is Italy. What is the Publicity Cavalcade? It's a parade that sets off 2 hours before the race. It was established in the 1930s, and after the sponsored teams were banned, the tour kind of needed to bring in more money, and then they kind of used it to raise funds for the tour, and the money that it's made from it equals about half the prize money. And describe the legend or the myth of Lance Armstrong prior to his confession of doping. The myth is that he had taken up to 600 drug tests, and the fact of it is the USADA has only tested Armstrong about 60 times in his career, and then the UCI only reported about over 200 blood draws, so he's nowhere near the number that he said he did. And then how does the tour compare to the earliest competitions? There's a lot more blatant sponsorship. It's broadcasted in color, which is obviously huge. It makes it more entertaining. And then it's just a lot more cheating allegations and drugs, doping, motor engines, stuff like that. What are some of the most interesting things that Barr says about the Tour de France? What does he compare it to, and how does he say it places in French culture? It allows the French to learn again about their country. It allows rediscovery of physical oneness of the country and wealth. It's completely eye-opening and exposes the Frenchman to his country. And then he compares it to a war with generals, cavalry, theoreticians, and mathematicians. He always uses it as a metaphor, and then he also uses the metaphor of an epic, like the ancient Greek, like sagas back in the day. And then he uses the army for its use of leaders and convoys, promotes like an almost warlike scenery. And then epic imagery shows the riders as being heroes, and at each stage being an individual like chapter of that epic or a certain line along with it. And that's M8.